Welcome to this week's episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My guest this week is Niall Cluley, and he is the MD and a shareholder in Dragonfish, a culture and performance consultancy. He's also lived and breathed all of this. He came from a corporate background, and we'll hear about his background and how it's impacted on what he does today. And importantly, towards the end of our conversation, he gives us the 6 key factors and tips that make culture work within an organisation. So please keep listening for that. I really hope you're enjoying these episodes of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. And if so, please do subscribe on your favourite channel. And if you want to know more about Evolve, go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. But for now, let's get on with the show. Hello, Niall.
Morning. Hi.
Welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Very pleased to be here.
Yeah, we're going to, I'm sure, have a great conversation today. Going to dig into a bit of your own story, but really the feature of this conversation is you are an expert in that term culture. So we're going to discuss all things culture.
Great.
But I suppose we should kick off really, for our listeners to to learn a little bit about you. For somebody being first introduced to you and Dragonfish, how do you explain what you and the team at Dragonfish do?
It's a great question, because it's not always an easy concept to explain what we do for people. But putting it very simply, me and the team at Dragonfish help ambitious people and brands, organizations to really unlock their potential by harnessing and strengthening the alignment they have as an organization to create better futures, to be more change ready, and to deliver better outcomes. So that's how we simply put it these days.
And before Dragonfish, you had a successful kind of career. When was the first moment that the penny dropped that actually, performance, culture, all of these things do hang together, and it would be something that you'd like to delve into in more depth?
So I think throughout my career, the constant thread, if you like, has been loving to see people fulfill their potential. And loving to understand what drives performance, and also what brings people together to do great things for their customers, their beneficiaries, their shareholders, their stakeholders. And I think throughout my career, I've worked on different elements of that. And it was only sort of, as I was moving into more senior roles in larger brands. So I was the CPO at Fitness First globally. I was at Vodafone before that. It was in those roles that you sort of start thinking more holistically about all the elements that create the conditions for people to deliver performance, to enjoy the experience, and to do it in a way that's going to create sustainable results, sustainable performance. So I think my career touched on various elements, whether that was goal setting from an early part of my career that was in sailing. So I sailed at a very competitive level when I was younger. I learned a lot about goal setting and the importance of that. Then I was involved in a lot of training and vocational development with young people in their careers. So really seeing how people achieve their goals and develop their careers. Then it was sort of learning and development at mass scale or talent in organizations. And then it was people strategies, customer strategies, bigger transformations. So I've always enjoyed all those elements of why people get out of bed in the morning, what work means to people, but also just how you unlock the best that people can bring at work.
Yeah, and I'm sure during the course of our conversation, you're going to lean back on some of that. But I'm also intrigued, this bit about your story, and it doesn't hear this story very often, but you were Dragonfish's first customer.
Yes.
So how did you go from being customer number one to being MD and owning shares in the business?
Yeah, so I often introduce myself as the founding client, and people kind of look at me, what do you mean, the founding client? I was involved in a very big people-centered transformation, Fitness First. A story from here in Dorset, from Bournemouth in its early days.
Exactly. Success stories, isn't it?
Exactly, through to this global business that became bigger in Thailand than it was in the UK as a business, and in various different countries around the world. But it had been caught in the mid-market. It needed to be turned around, repositioned. With more of a premium feel, but still have premium but a mass appeal, and really put its members at the center of it. So that transformation was a big a big change and a big part of my career, if you like, in terms of really seeing what can be done when you center an organization on its customers.
Okay.
You bring a new purpose in, and part of that work was to think about how do we really engage 14,000 people globally in not thinking about what their perceptions of what members need were, but bring data and insight to life at the front line. So it was one of the insights we had was people were very biased about their own experience of health and fitness. So personal trainers want everybody to look like them, or
Yeah.
they want the same, or gym class instructors might want people to have the same passion they have. But actually, fitness means different things to different people. Some people need more support. Some people need more inspiration. So what we did was Dragonfish had just set up at the time. And it was two insights people that set it up, and they were great at thinking about all those techniques that are used in customer experience evolution, and how could this be used more in this space of people experience, employee experience. So they helped us really think about the workforce that we had, their motivation drives, and then the motivation drives of our members, and help me find ways to bring that to life. And I thought, wow, this is really powerful how different approaches, data analytics, insights from different fields, practices could be used more in the world of culture and employee experience. So that's where the kind of penny dropped, that this was a calling for me. This is something I'd like to take forward.
Right.
So made the leap as I was ending a phase at Fitness First to go back onto the consulting side and build a team and build a movement around
Yeah.
what we do in this space.
And how was, because there'll be people listening here to listening about, wanting to hear about culture and employee
Mm,
experience and that. But there's people listening that are thinking, well, maybe I'll start my own business. Maybe I'll move out of corporate life
mm.
into consultancy in some way, shape, or form. What were your feelings when you made that leap? Because you'd had that successful corporate
Yeah.
career,
Mm.
and to leap into a kind of small business kind of environment
Yeah.
was a leap of faith. Can you remember how it felt?
Yeah, so it's definitely scary. Going from the certainty of where your paycheck was coming from, the certainty of the outlook that you're having, and that kind of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable with the fact that you are constantly working to find clients. There's a life cycle with those clients, so you
Yeah.
need to constantly be looking forward and pushing the cliff of work away from you as far as possible. So it's quite a scary prospect
Yeah.
in some regards, but also very exciting as well. The variety,
Yeah.
the fact that I was channeling all my energy on making an impact and making a difference, rather than negotiating the kind of politics that always
Seeing your
exist
way through
in a larger
organization.
organization and the governance there. So I found that quite appealing. So I suppose just making sure you're going in with your eyes wide open. And I think a lot of people don't realize, moving from corporate careers into consultancy, professional services, is the range that you need to work at. Sometimes you're getting the invoices ready, or you're preparing an event and laying it out, and then the next minute you're in the boardroom presenting some findings. So
You've really got to
the
know how to
rate
roll your sleeves
you
up, don't
do
you?
very much
That
so.
support isn't there in the same way.
Exactly, and I think that takes an adjustment of where you find yourself in a corporate structure to being in a small business. But hey, I say to everyone these days, all big organizations now need to think like smaller organizations to be more adaptable. So I think in many ways it's a mindset thing. So
I love that phrase you used early on in that response about you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I think that probably does
yes,
sum it up, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely. I think
So many different ways.
so many different ways. I had an early stage in my career, in my sort of mid-20s, had left a corporate job and set up my own training company. So I'd had a previous sort of entrepreneurial experience, which was really enjoyable. Learned a lot from that. So I think that had helped me. And I've always been a big believer in following your kind of passions, and really embracing where can you transfer your skills, your drives across sectors or across roles. So I think that helped me as well. I felt more ready this time than I had in my mid-20s. But I'm also so grateful I'd had that that experience as well before. So
Yeah, no, definitely. We learn from everything in life.
we do indeed. We do indeed. One of our values at Dragonfish is never stop learning, actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
we've embedded that
So I
firmly in our
always have,
culture. So,
whenever evolves is very similar. It's always have a growth mindset.
fantastic.
It's the same thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah,
Definitely.
we can learn from everything.
So we should start talking culture.
Mm,
And culture is one of those most overused words, in my opinion, in business.
Very
It
much.
means so many different things.
mm.
So when you think about culture in a practical kind of day-to-day way, what does that word really mean to you?
I think actually you can start from the outside in with this and go, what are the experiences your customers are having in any from any organization, and most of the clues there link back to how the organization is wired internally and how aligned people are internally and what its motivations and drives are internally. So I think we often think about culture these days as a team, right? What are the experiences people are having, customers are having, the market around them is having, and then look at all the components, the ecosystem of elements in the organization that is driving those experiences or driving those outcomes. And it's behaviors and mindsets that drive actions, which drive experiences. So I think we love, there's so many lovely phrases around culture, how somebody feels on a Sunday night, the stories, what people say about you, the organization when you're not in the room, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All these phrases have their place, but I think we really look at culture now from a systems thinking point of view. What are all an ecosystem of components from vision, purpose, behaviors, the systems of the organization, the practices in the organization, to the experiences, and how do those things interconnect? And the more we can bring data to those data and insight to those elements, the more we can strengthen the organization and strengthen culture, which can be a positive asset, not a thing that's unmanaged. We have a lovely quote at Dragonfish, which is, you either shape it intentionally or leave it to do what it wants, but either way you get the culture you deserve. So that's
well, that was kind of leading on to probably where I was going to want to take the discussion, because there is, and it's probably a question where you're going to give the obvious kind of answer to this, and it's probably a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So how much do you really believe, perhaps thinking about the kind of SME world, the owner business kind of world, that's generally our listeners.
Yeah.
So you've got a kind of owner managed business, turning over anything up to sort of £20 million.
Yeah.
How much do you think culture is by design in that type of organization, or that it just grows legs and feet and it evolves itself?
So there's no doubt about it that founders' fingerprints are on every part of an organization. It's DNA, because it's somebody's idea, it's somebody's life, their passion. So that's evident in so many organizations. But I think increasingly, you even in founder-led organizations, we see that you can put elements in place, and founders are more conscious of this as well. How do I create an organization which is sellable, scalable,
that succeeds, will
succeed? Exactly. It doesn't need me, as business education has evolved, I think that's also been really helpful to see how well leaders are coming from an early stage at thinking about the blueprint of their organization, and how do they, because it's about managing risk, isn't it? It's about managing opportunity. So I think we've seen a shift from in how startups are scaling more successfully by managing culture intentionally. But there's no doubt, you take a founder out of the picture or transition a founder, it has a huge impact on could be the soul of the organization, but there can also be a better future beyond that as well. So I think managing those transitions is really important, that people are, writing down, we used to say codifying what the organization is all about, but it's really having that view of what the ecosystem for that organization is, that's going to be right for now and right for the future.
Because it is so true, isn't it? And I've lived and breathed this and sort of gone through the transition
Mm.
of taking that founder energy culture, my key behaviours, and that's what drives a lot of startups, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those early years,
Yeah.
those early days.
Mm.
It's the energy, the passion, the value of the individual
Yeah.
reflects in the organisation.
Mm.
But you do hit that brick wall if you're not careful, that
Yeah.
once you get to a certain size, and it may be a sort of 10 people plus,
Yeah.
you can only disseminate that energy, those values
Mm.
so far, can't you?
Mm.
Before it's too diluted and
Yeah.
culture then takes over. And if it happens unintentionally,
Yep.
that can be a bit of a car crash.
Yeah. Some of the behaviours scientists' work kind of shows that once you get beyond one train carriage of people,
Okay.
there's been some interesting experiments around this, that you can have behaviours kind of normed within a sort of a train carriage, but once you get to more than more than one train carriage, you will get subcultures and different norms established, because people are influenced by those that are around them, and what the feeling is, the climate is in that situation. So I think climate is an interesting thing versus culture, and so much of culture exists within teams. But you can still have a framework or a blueprint around you that kind of is guiding where people are going. And that's why I think the more I've done this work over the years, and at Dragonfish we've now worked with over 100 brands across lots of different sectors, placing all the emphasis on values is maybe misguided. Values are something we all have as humans. But values, shared values as an organization, is an interesting concept. There's many stories of organizations with great values who have been in the headlines for the wrong reasons, right? So I think
that's because the values are on the wall.
They're on the wall,
exactly. They're not lived to breathe,
they're not lived to breathe.
It's lived and breathed that forms culture and behavior and performance.
Exactly, and that's why there's so many other elements that we think do influence behavior at work. So some of our research has shown that vision actually still trumps purpose as being a really important driver for behavior at work. So we all, there's been a really important movement around purpose and personal purpose and the why, and what does your organization exist for. But actually vision is also really important for unlocking ambition and for people to focus on their own personal growth and self of accomplishment. And therefore you need all these elements. You need vision, you need clear goals, you need purpose. You also, people just want to know where they're contributing, and the easier you make that for people, the easier it is for culture to thrive, if you like.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I always describe vision as that North Star.
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you? Interesting. How does a business, an organization, maintain that kind of focus on the North Star? Because quite often, again, early days of a business, there is a clear North Star. Everybody's aligned. And it gets reset or it gets recommunicated every now and again, but it's quite easy in the humdrum of everyday life in business to forget the North Star. So is there any hints and tips on how people can really embed that into an organisation, a business, so people really believe it and does give them a reason to turn up to work?
Yeah, so I think that there's also a lot of research about the kind of exec to sharp end front line disconnect on purpose. So a group of execs might get excited about the purpose statement that we're telling the world that we're for, but that can be disconnected at front line. So one of the piece of advice we would give any organization is to think about what purpose means at different levels of your organization, not just one statement and we've all got to get behind in the same way. At the middle of the organization, the power of any organization from the middle, those people that are managing big teams, that are driving the everyday performance as well as thinking about the future. It's how do they keep vision, the North Star and purpose alive when you're in a short-term weekly meeting. So it's where you take those moments to put your head up and think about what we're still excited about. What's changed in the market that changes what we're thinking about in the North Star. It's changing the conversation so it still feels real for people. The other technique that we think a lot of organizations have sort of lost a little bit of discipline around is thinking about working back from the future, because we've become frightened around the amount of uncertainty, the volatility in the market. Who knows what's happening next month, next week?
Who knows what Trump's going to do tomorrow?
Exactly. So, but you could still, we call it backcasting, if you like. You go to the future and then you work your way back and go, well, what will it sound like, feel like, look like? What will the metrics be? What will we doing with our customers? What will we doing with suppliers? And then you can stage that back. And yes, those things might change, but it's actually better to work on more dynamic strategies underneath those milestones and keep working on that discipline of the milestones, because never underestimate how much that means to people, because they get a sense that it's not just big lofty talk. God, we're really serious about moving towards the future, and we're starting that. 2 years doesn't feel as long away as 10 years. So, or months even. So that'd be another technique.
That's that one I definitely resonate with, because that's, when we do a strategic review or kind of optimization feasibility, we start with what does good look like, and what we're aiming for, and work back. But also when we're trying to get, businesses to communicate their plans, we very much love the kind of orbit diagram.
Yes.
Which is,
lovely.
This is where you may want, this is the central kind of, this is where you're heading. This is what good looks like. But actually, what does that mean in key areas of the business over a 3-year period? And where do you need to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years? Go comms that to your team. It's what we did Inspire. It's what we're doing at Evolve. And it works because people believe in it.
They do.
Because I think there is a thing, and I would be interested on your opinion about the more transient nature of team members these days. Because sometimes if you set that lofty, this is where we're going to be in 10, 15 years, they don't relate to it, in my opinion. Because they're like, well, I might only be here 3. So how do you get them on board?
So interesting on that. Our research, we do various studies on, it's called the Cracking the Culture Code study. We started with Bournemouth University, actually, so nearly 10 years ago in the very first study. And it's looking at what do attributes of high-performing organizations have in common. Anyway, what's interesting is post-pandemic, fulfillment at work, personal growth are becoming more important across different ages at work, or different life stages at work. But I think what's really important is if somebody's with you for 6 months, 12 months, how do you link their personal growth to the success of the organization, and how do you help them feel accomplishment? And I think we maybe have, I see organizations have lost their way a little bit with how they're developing teams. The pandemic brought in some great opportunities to do things virtually and use different channels, but it's maybe we've got to kind of get back to how we really mentoring, coaching, developing people, and helping people see the growth that they're having right here and now. So even if it's for a short time in their career, because they will get far more from it and they will contribute far more from it. So,
and there are generations now where making a contribution of and understanding what that contribution is so much more important, isn't it?
Not just the task in the job, but the impact you're having in the job. So just the language we use with generations matters as well. So objective setting, personal development, what are your impact goals? What are you going to work on that you're going to see development in, that's going to also help our customers, the people around you, and actually, the organizations that we see doing that well tend to have people staying with them a little bit longer. But I think it's being open to the fact that people might want to leave and come back. Keep your doors always open. Definitely. That's really important.
Absolutely. At Evolve, we exist to help business owners and leaders like you start, grow, and exit with purpose. Whether it's coaching, peer groups, strategic advice, leadership and development, or just needing some financial clarity, we're here to support every step of your business journey. If you're ready to evolve, we'd love to help you take that very next step. And when, people come knocking on your door saying, Neil, I think we've got a culture problem. What do you usually think about that in terms of what you're hearing underneath that?
That's a great question. And we have so many questions we ask when somebody does say, look, we want to work on this. And the first one is really, how aligned are you on what you're solving for? So, is it short-term performance? Is it negativity in the workplace? Is it customer growth? Is it we're really ambitious for the future, and we know we need to evolve and be stronger for the future? What is it you're solving for? And also, what's your shared definition of what culture is and isn't for your organization and your leadership team? So we'd often start there, to be honest. What does it mean to you? What's your intent? What are you trying to achieve? And then think about how we can move the organization, think about culture as the opportunity, not culture as the bucket of problems, which is often what we see. People blame culture for a bad decision or something's gone wrong. Well, it's the culture that's caused that. Well, actually, let's now reframe how we work on culture to be an asset for us.
And do you get those moments? I assume you put sort of teams of people from organisations around a table to do the research and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you get, when you go in initially, do you get people, those team members rolling their eyes at you a little bit? Here we go again type thing.
I think we try and unlock what the scars. We try and talk about the scars that exist in the organisation. Where have you, what have you learned? Because most of the answers are there, right? Sometimes it's just additional data and insight, or looking at it in the right frame that makes a difference. We never claim that we're going to bring, reveal brand new information you don't know. It's just helping you connect with it in a way that moves you forward. So I think on that one, it's just really interesting to explore the mindsets that people have had. What experiences have they had? So here's a couple of questions that we would kind of advise asking. When we've done change well before, what did we do? When it went badly, what did we learn? And what we determined to make sure we do differently this time? Those are pretty good questions to kind of narrow in. Okay, how going to approach this time? And I think I've also learned that you need to give people the space to have the conversations, because often people are afraid to talk about things like purpose and personal values and motivations and drives, and you need to create space to allow people to come together on what they are solving for. And we always say we never do culture to anyone. All we do is help internal teams do it themselves better, and help move it along. It's like we don't always do a house renovation ourselves, or we go to the experts. We get help on things that we need to move us forward, and that's all we want to do, so that the organization is a better place to sustain that focus. And because culture is never done. It's not a project. That's the other, we hear too many people, we're doing a culture project. Do you mean you're evolving your organization for the future? Because if that's what you're on for, then I think we can help you.
And do you think too many organizations do take that project view?
Yes.
Of it, that short term. We've got a bit of a problem. We're going to fix it. Once we've fixed it, it's going to be good forever.
Yeah, I think that's a red flag for us, for sure. You have to put some parameters around any piece of work or any program. Of course you do. It's got to have a start, middle, and end, but it needs to build on to the future. So yeah, so I think it's about laying out the roles from the start, and how do you use that. We always say it's a moment when you're working on your organization and evolving your culture. What an amazingly positive thing to do. As a group of humans, what connects us together, making the thing that we're all involved in, we spend so much of our lives at, better. So enjoy that moment. Don't see it as something you need to just get through. See it as something that won't be easy, but will make you stronger, and you'll learn and grow. And we see teams so much stronger when they've worked through culture at all levels, actually.
Well, because they've been there, seen it, done it.
Exactly.
It's theirs. There's ownership.
There's ownership. That's right.
That's the different thing there, isn't it? And I suppose I come back to quite a question about hints and tips. So, again, coming back to your sort of typical SME that perhaps has done a bit of a project around culture, has done some of the things we've talked about and we'll talk about in this conversation. How do they maintain that momentum? How do they keep it at the forefront? And not just get lost once it's done and implemented, drift away? So I think you can tell a lot by how your daily, weekly, monthly meetings run. What do you put up and talk about for, even if it's 5 minutes? What is it you share stories around? What is it you do recognition around? What is it you use to make decisions that might be tough? So I think that's my top tip for any SME leader and team or part of a team is think about how you bring your blueprint into your everyday, because it can make a huge difference. And the symbol it gives people, it really matters as well. It's people go, wow, this organization is actually serious about this. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be working at it. The more I've done this, the more research I've done with leaders,
across industry and with regulators. There are leaders all over the world figuring this out every day. Nobody's got it cracked. Everybody's working on it, and it's changing all the time as expectations externally and internally change. You've got to adapt. So so keep working at it. Keep it simple. Keep the blueprint in the everyday moments.
I love that.
Yeah,
the blueprint in the everyday.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely.
that's probably when pressure mounts and the
Yeah.
heat goes up.
Yeah, you go straight to the metrics.
Yeah, you go, right, what's the KPIs? Are we hitting the numbers? What are we going to do? How do we? Whereas actually a bit of thinking about,
Exactly. What are the outcomes? What are the things that the inputs, the focuses, the behaviours, the what, the why, the what, and the how that are going to help get us to the outcomes. So, yeah.
But that's an interesting conversation then around kind of measurement, isn't it? Because throughout this conversation so far, you've discussed, Neil, that you know, good culture, properly embedded, lived and breathed, drives performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Fundamental, isn't it?
Fundamental.
Yeah. But that does, some listeners to this will say that sounds quite wishy-washy.
Yeah.
It's quite intangible. How do you measure the outcome of a successful culture change, project?
So it's definitely been our mission from the start of our work at Dragonfish to make it more tangible, more objective, less subjective, and make it something that people can, see the links between what you do and the outcome it creates. But I think what does it look like when it's lived, when it's embedded? I think the test is how well organizations then navigate through their ongoing change using their culture as a reference point. I think you see it in the behaviors, you see it in the engagement in teams, but I always come back to the experiences. The experiences that customers are having is the flip side of the coin that your people are having as well. And it's a reflection of the environment you've created. So we look at measurement on kind of 3 levels. So how aligned is the organization to the vision, the purpose, the goals, the behaviors that you want to embed. So that's number 1. I think number 2 is, what are how do you measure the behaviors that you're seeing every day, and how well are people engaging, developing, leading teams, well, people are making decisions, collaborating, putting the customer first, whatever your priorities might be. You can measure behaviors. We just don't necessarily, and we do it all the time, but we just don't always do it in ways that are in a learning loop, that are recorded, and there are ways you can do that. And then the third level is the link between the experiences and the outcomes. So what's the alignment, the behaviors doing to customer growth, customer lifetime value, to net operating margin, to those lag metrics, which ultimately are so critical. So there is a way of linking those things.
And I suppose again for an SME, and we've used them, and I've used them and recommend sometimes to clients to use them. Hope it's the right thing. I hope I'm going to get the right answer here. That sort of net promoter score and employee net promoter score would be some indicators,
definitely,
that relatively easy indicators that a smaller business could implement.
Yeah, definitely. They're great, but again, they can often be quite an abstract concept. Net promoter score. We find a lot of people within organizations really measure it, but what does it mean? Whereas they much prefer
benchmark it.
Breaking that down. Yeah, well, what does that mean for more customers using us, or customers loving what we do? Or so we do. We link the alignment and engagement in the organization to outcomes like advocacy. So are people proud to represent the products and services that their organization offers? That's a really important indicator that normally links to the customer NPS score, but it isn't always measured. So there are ways to make those links. We have got one simple tip would be we've done some research and established kind of 6 signatures of high performance, which from all of our research are the 6 things that tend to that the top 20% of high performing organizations have in place. So
let's hear them.
The first one is clear vision, purpose, values. So if people are aligned to what the organization's all about, that's there, which is good to see. Number 2, is customer centricity. They actually design the organization around the customer.
Serve the customer's needs.
Exactly. It's an obvious one, but isn't always there, right? Customer connection, so people understand they understand their role in delivering for a customer, whether you're in a back office team enabling others or you're at the sharp end. Everybody's got that sense of connection to a
Okay.
customer.
And I suppose that brings that customer-centric piece alive.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It absolutely does. And then the others are, the other three are to do with how people feel at work and the experience they have at work. And they're not necessarily the typical employee engagement measures, but they tend to be around that. So that is personal growth, that I've got this sense I can grow in my work. Personal, so impact is really important.
Okay.
And fulfillment. So those three are really important indicators. And there's a kind of trust dynamic that runs throughout out those as well. You know, I think the trust barometer in any organization, externally and internally, you know, in our research shows that you're more likely to have high performance. So.
Could you just explain the impact one?
Yeah.
Slightly more.
So that is where when people feel like they are making a difference.
They're making their contribution.
Their contribution
makes the difference.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of organizations leave potential on the table.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, where they don't necessarily have we made sure that everybody in the organization really knows the difference that they make and how important that difference is to success in this organization. Because I think there are a lot of people that are doing transactional jobs or they're crunching through their tasks for the day. And sometimes we just need to all keep lifting our heads and going, this matters. I'm making a difference. And I know where my impact comes in. So that's where you tend to unlock more growth, more impact.
And I suppose that's where perhaps communication strategies play a part.
Yeah, they do.
Because that's a way of fueling quite a few of those things.
Yeah.
So again, hints and tips around communication and internal and external, I suppose, that embeds some of those 6 factors in.
Yeah, so I think we've seen a huge shift, and you were talking about it earlier about some of the things you've done as a team in the past. You know, with using videos and changing up the kind of email weekly update, the Friday updates. I love that because I think we can often slip into the safe channels of communication rather than just having a conversation or walking around gathering together just to have a stand up for 15 minutes about highlights for the week, everyone, you know, what we got on next week. So I think communication, formal, informal, getting a flow of communication going and using multiple channels. I think even if a small organization's got so many tools that they can use these days. And often it's just the quick hits on things that make the difference. But making it easy for people to get what they need. So I think a lot of business owners I see putting a lot of responsibility on that. Oh God, I know I need to do more comms. I need to tell everyone about this and I need to tell everyone about that. And they're feeling a lot of guilt because they're not communicating as much as they'd like to, and their intention is good, but they're just flat out, you know, busy managing so many different things. And what I would say is, have you made it easy for people to pull on what they need? You know, so create transparency. You know, have you put everything in one place? You know, the plan for the year, or you know, a folder that's got everything in it, or somewhere. Just make it easy for people to pull on the information they need in their terms, but then also be creative, have some fun with it.
Yeah,
keep it simple.
I think the creativity and the fun bit is the bit where, as a leader, you can actually get. Maybe that's because that's the way my mind works. You can have some fun. Yeah, as I said, I got bored typing a monthly email.
Yeah.
So we started doing fun videos because actually I felt at home doing that and it felt more natural and we got, you know, far greater response. But I suppose communication is one of those things that worked for me.
Yeah.
It would possibly have worked for 60% of the team, but you still got to find the ways of communicating across different platforms, haven't you?
Definitely. I've learned a lot as a business leader of Dragonfish now for 10 years, having to mix it up as well. You know, we don't always get it right. But I think what I've learned is to keep trying different things. So we have a saying that, you know, we are our own culture experiment because that is what we do. So we need to be talking about it all the time. So we do try different things. Some of them fall flat. People are like, that was a great deal. But thank you for trying it. But you've got to keep trying new things. I think sometimes leaders can be afraid to get it wrong, or they want to let's find our format and we'll stay with that format rather than going, should we try something different this month and see how it works? So have a bit of test. I think people are very forgiving more forgiving than leaders realize when you're trying
And I
different
suppose
things.
it is an advantage that smaller businesses have, isn't
It
it?
is.
That you've got a smaller team actually.
Exactly.
If you can mix it up a little bit
Yep. And
and
yeah,
deal with
exactly.
it. Whereas if you've got 2,000 employees,
Yeah.
there is a little bit, if we get this wrong,
Yeah.
how do we backtrack? How do we change?
And that's what we're saying to leaders of big organizations, 1,000 plus, 10,000 plus. You
Yeah.
need to think much more like a small business
Yeah.
these days. How do you respond quickly? How agile are you? How are you testing and learning something quickly? And how can you get a viral change happening in your organization much faster than a traditional big change program?
Change management
Because if you're
process.
not, there'll be somebody else coming after you very, very quickly who is adapting. So I think it's never been more exciting, I think, for small businesses to go, where can they take on some of the whales in their sector, and where can they take a march on a proposition to a market to market quickly and well, and that's through people.
Yeah. And I suppose we need to probably touch on that piece around technology, and it wouldn't be a podcast these days if we didn't mention AI. So where do you think this, the whole tech AI piece and the impact that's going to have on culture? A bit of forward thinking.
And we as a team we talk a lot about this. We look at a lot of the data and trends. What's interesting is some of the research we're seeing is from professional services buyers globally, that kind of AI did have it was a massive spike last year, but actually other priorities have come back up again. So it's not that it's peaked, but it's just rebalancing with being data led, improving customer experience, and all of those come back to workforce and how you organize yourselves, which is underpinned by culture.
Yeah.
So I think we can get lost that it's all about AI. I think if anything, my conversations with a lot of senior leaders and the team's conversations are about being data led. Customer centric, data led organizations, tech enabled. Not there are tech organizations, right? But if everybody thinks data, customer, and tech enabled, then AI is just piece of the piece.
It's just a new technology that's going to help make that happen easier, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the watch out though is how rapidly it can be adopted. Well, badly, the impact it has on work and how work feels for people. How people have become maybe more disconnected at work. There are sides of this that worry me.
And I suppose it is that pace, isn't it? Because it's probably not necessarily the AI, but the AI technology.
Yep.
The speed of that is going to lead to change, isn't it? And it's how change eats culture, isn't it? Probably.
It is, and it's making sure that you recalibrate. Yeah, we need to. Is it AI that's going to take the jobs, or is it somebody using AI that's somebody who's using AI well that's going to take their jobs? I think we need to all have it's a tool there. We have to embrace it, but it's how we embrace it well and prioritize the moments that matter. And data always unlocks that. Some lovely examples we are seeing where organizations are retraining people in more sophisticated, more understanding emotional intelligence to be able to serve customers on calls better, because they're not so taken with the process, and they've got support and tools that are enabling them to maybe deal with claims or requests that are really health requests or whatever it might be in a more empathetic way. What a brilliant example of where you could retrain or your people
resource
and make work more meaningful. So yes, there are lots of risks that need to be managed. I think lots of compliance that needs to be considered, lots of protection of data and IP and so on that will, I think, we need some regulation to move faster maybe to support that. But I'm optimistic about the opportunities it will bring if organizations come back to what matters to us. Is ultimately, if the soul completely goes out of work, then you've not got people won't want to be part of that movement anymore. They'll go to another movement. So humans will vote with their feet, and customers will vote with their feet. So getting it, it's not the race isn't. I think the race is how to adopt it well, not just fast.
Yeah.
Adopt it fast and well.
Great piece of advice.
Well, yeah. What's your own reflection on that, Warren, at the minute?
I think my own reflection is that I think very similar to you, that I think in terms of culture and organizations and what the impact it's going to have, I think AI is just another piece of technology. It's another tool. I think the bit that worries me, and I suppose I alluded to it there, is the pace. And therefore, most organizations don't manage change well.
Yeah.
And therefore, the impact it's going to have on
Yeah.
a huge number of individuals at a human level
Yeah.
and organizations that start to fail because the pace of change comes so quickly, they don't manage it well, and that has a really negative impact.
Yeah.
When I talk to SME, on owner-managed entrepreneurial style businesses, the ones that I admire are on the forefront of it and are thinking about the impact early.
Yeah.
And therefore, if they're thinking about the impact, they're thinking about the consequences, and they're thinking about how do we deal with this? How do we do it properly?
Yeah.
And how do we make something happen that benefits the organization? And if there is impact on individuals, we manage it properly.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. I think your point about change is really well made. I mean, we're still learning how to do change well in organizations, and it's often the damage it has. I mean, the neuroscience shows it as well. Badly managed change that can put a lot of stress on people, has a real knock-on impact. But people-centered design in change, is the future. Really thinking through the whole system, what we're changing in our organization, and how do we do that well? How do we learn how to get that well? How do we take people on the journey? That's what we see. That's what we help many organizations do that better. So,
As we wrap up our conversation, I do want to just ask you about the role you've played with the wonderful charity Stormbreak. You're chair of that incredible charity, one that we support at Evolve. And I just, having done those roles myself, I wondered what fulfilling that role, supporting another organization has meant for you, and what have you learned from that experience?
Oh, so much. So firstly, Warren, I just want to say, thank you to Evolve for supporting Stormbreak. They absolutely love the space they have to come together as a team. So it's really valued, your ongoing support. It's an amazing charity. I was really taken along in the early days of it by Martin Yelling and Judy Willett's kind of passion to do something proactive to help support kids' mental health and unlock the benefits that movement and physicality has, and bring that to schools, to the NHS services and so on. So I've learned a huge amount technically about mental health. I'm not a mental health expert, but I've learned a huge amount, which I think has really helped me as a father of 2 kids. Think about how I'm seeing people in the world and how work affects them and all these other things, but also just the challenges of scaling and growing a small charity from a small Dorset charity is now become a national charity, delivering in schools all over the country and in interesting programs. But just how hard it is to get funding for an organization that's doing such a good thing.
Yeah.
So, and also, how do you scale? How do you change mindsets as well? So, I think what I've learned is how to bring my professional kind of experience in culture change and mindsets and behaviours to support a charity that's trying to influence people to get on board. So it's tons of learnings.
It is, isn't it? I always encourage members of our team to get involved in those kind of roles, because I think you step out of your organisation, don't you, and you see something from a different perspective.
You hugely do, and I think it's very humbling, and I think it puts things in different perspective. But also, it's nice to see an organisation evolving and thriving, doing something like that. So
Okay, so you up for some quick fire questions?
Go for it.
We may have covered some of these, but I'm gonna have to use my card. So. Quick fire questions. Values placed on a wall, on a poster, do they inspire or irritate?
Depends. I love seeing what matters to organizations. So I love when I see them on the wall. I love to, well, that's interesting, those phrase words, but it's all about how they're lived. So I'd rather not see them on the wall than see them on the wall.
Perfect. More damaging to culture, brilliant jerks or nice people who don't deliver?
Oof. Organizations do amazing things when you embrace the difference we all bring to work. You need a mix of different motivations, drives, and understand that yeah, everybody's got something to contribute. However, some people are more damaging to other people, and too much niceness has toxicity too. So
Okay.
talking about it, learning about it, that's what I would say.
Wow, what a
I'm not getting
response.
my quick responses here, but
Yeah, but it was a great response.
okay, well, it's
Okay.
a thought.
Let's see how we try with this one.
Okay,
As a leader, what's harder, protecting the culture or developing the culture?
protecting.
Perfect. That was a one-word response. Most underrated leadership skill, listening or courage?
Courage.
Okay. And why?
Because I think it's so hard for leaders to get it right and to take a risk these days, with so many expectations on them. I think leaders are humans too, is sometimes a thing that we say. So I think it's good to see more listening, more happening, better IQ, EQ across leadership in general, compassion. We need more of it.
Yeah.
But I think
Courage.
courage matters. You know, we need people who want to solve world problems and are able to go for it. You know, so courage.
Brilliant. Thank you. Last one. You'll be pleased to hear. What one word that makes you nervous in businesses and organizations when they are describing their culture?
One word that worries me. We're a high performance culture.
Okay.
That's 2 words,
It's-
3 words, but when
that's
people
the way-
say we're a high performance we're about high performance,
Yeah.
and go, well, what does that really mean?
Perfect. Great way to end the podcast, Neil. If people want to learn more about you, but importantly more about Dragonfish, where can they go?
So go to the usual places. We've got a lot of our research and top tips on the website, on the LinkedIn channels, and yeah, we do a lot of free research and events. There, if anyone fancies joining us, we love to talk about it. We love to help other people who are trying to make changes in it. So yeah, come join our movement or events anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you, Neil, for being a great guest on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on. Been a pleasure.
I love these conversations when we have a subject expert on board and they share their knowledge, their experiences of the real life benefits that their thing does for an organisation. And in this case, in Neil, we had an expert on performance and culture, and he shared some great insights, some great personal experiences. And again, I just hope you've perhaps taken one thing away that you can do differently in your organisation to improve culture. If you do that, then listening to this podcast would have been a success. I do really hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if so, help us by subscribing on your favourite channel. And don't forget to learn more about Evolve, go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. Thanks for listening.